It's been 4 years since I started hormone replacement therapy. I'm excited. I've got my set right here. But before we even do that, we need to wash our hands. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, and Z. Now I know my elemental P. Next time, won't you wash your hands? Welcome back, homies. We're gonna do this stuff. First thing you're gonna need is this thing. This thing is your best friend. You're gonna need to set at least 1 or 2 of these aside, trust me. Especially if you're like afraid of blood and all that stuff. Next, you're gonna need something that will hold your needle. Something that you can dispose of later at a needle exchange. Needle syringe and the little one.
Oh, it looks so cute!
And lastly, you're gonna need this thing. This thing is the girl juice. Take this out. Just leave it right there. You're gonna take this off. You wanna make sure that you do this in a certain way. Make sure that this is facing downward so that the top is on the bottom. You're gonna need to top your bottom. My dosage is 1. See where it says 1? 1. You're gonna pull, so it should look like this. Very gently, this is what it should look like. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna push the oxygen inside. Because what's going on right here is that there's all the oxygen. And then you're gonna push, 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 oh! Get all the oxygen out. Then you wanna make sure that you just slowly start withdrawing the juice. Juicily juice. You may need to do this a few times, but if you do it a few times, you'll get it right eventually. It does require practice, everyone. And then what you do is you take this off, take this little thing off, put it in here. Oh, Mike's mom, all he wanted was a Pepsi. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna take this thing out. And it should look like this, big and intimidating. Woo. Depends on where you're gonna do it, okay? I'm not a doctor. You should be asking your doctor how to do this. I'm not Dr. Sabo. But what you're gonna do now is take the part of your body that you're gonna inject in. The fat of my leg. Fat, chunky, thick leg. It's like a big slab of meat. You're gonna, get it all good. And, they do recommend that you use like a cotton swab for this kind of stuff. You don't necessarily need to do that. This is honestly the scariest part. But the way I like to look at it is if you just get it over with, it's all done, then you can go and play video games afterwards. Take some deep breath, maybe drink some water. Here we go. Oh yeah, I don't even feel pain actually. That's a good sign. It is going to be really hard to push down on the syringe here, and it is going to go real slow. That's intentional. You just want to persevere. Keep an eye on the numbers. Numbers are your best friend. Okay, now, oh shit. Just in case you do start bleeding, make sure you get this covered. Put it in your sharps container. Whew, I am sweating because it is not only very hot in here, but I am also very, 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 very anxious. It is a little bloody, but it's not too bad. Yeah! Why did I do that on camera? I in particular am diagnosed with gender dysphoria. Lots of trans people are diagnosed with gender dysphoria. It is medically necessary for me to do this. The reason why this is important that I use hormone replacement therapy in order to help my gender dysphoria is because of the life I have lived up until this point. I had gender dysphoria. That the symptoms of gender dysphoria that I was going through throughout my childhood and through my early 20s and onward were continuously evident of gender dysphoria. Now, this is my story. This is a story that is unique to me, and it's important that we recognize this because it is mine. It is my autonomous right to be able to live the life that I choose to live. But what I don't like is when other trans people tell other trans people, and non-binary folks for that matter, what it takes to be transgender or non-binary. And because it bothers me so much as a transgender woman, that's what this video is about. Transmedicalism, and why transmedicalism is absolute dog shit. I have come to the closet to talk to all of you who have it in your heads that being transgender is explicitly a medical condition. And I take great offense to that as a transgender person who uses hormone replacement therapy. And that is to say, we're not all united on this opinion here. So what is transmedicalism? Jesse Earl, also known as Jesse Gender on YouTube.com, has said, transmedicalists believe that being transgender is contingent upon suffering and or medical treatment. This is also to say that she's done her due diligence by talking about this topic at great length, more so than I will. Link is in the description. Transmedicalism is the belief that it is required that you be diagnosed with gender dysphoria in order to be legitimately considered transgender. And even among this belief that I had just described, even that intersection of belief is not uniform. Because some people believe that you need to have hormone replacement therapy in order to legitimately be transgender, while some people believe that you just need to have gender dysphoria as a diagnosis. There are even people who believe that you need to pass in order to be considered transgender. I believe it's worth clarifying some stuff before we continue. Someone who is transgender is a person who does not identify with the sex they were assigned with at birth. Being transgender has absolutely nothing to do with surgical procedures, journeying through hormone replacement therapy, or how far along on any given spectrum do they pass. Gender dysphoria is the social discomfort a trans person experiences between their own personal sense of gender and the sex assigned at birth. Gender dysphoria does not require surgical procedures, journey through hormone replacement therapy, or how far along someone passes on any given spectrum. However, each of the aforementioned avenues can be beneficial and helpful for transgender, non-binary, and gender non-conforming people if they feel these attributes are necessary. Someone in the audience may call me too cute, or someone who believes gender dysphoria is not required to be transgender. Now look, I know I'm very cute, and that's undeniable. I am just absolutely adorable to the highest degree. It is absolutely lethal how adorable I am. But the phrase too cute comes with a loaded sense of resentment, like as if we're blessed with genetics that make us cute. And I don't like that, especially when comparing me to other people. I would kind of rather you didn't compare me to other people even. Just don't. And lastly, somebody may call trans people without medical prerequisites as transgenders, which is, goddamn, why do I even need to dissect this? Because cisgender people, especially transphobic cisgender people, already view our lives as just a phase and that we will fade out of it very soon. So to imply that it's just a trend that we're going through, even though we don't go through the medical process, it's already reinforcing the stigma that is placed on us unjustifiably so. I think it's really offensive. I am on hormone replacement therapy because, as I said earlier, it was medically necessary for me. I went through a puberty that I didn't want to go through as a kid, so fucking traumatizing that it led me to begin drinking later on in life. Thankfully, I haven't really been drinking as much, anywhere near as much recently. The last time I had any form of alcohol was back in July of 2022. But that is to say that when I started to drink, and I started to realize that I was forced to become an altar boy at a young age, it really did some serious fucking damage on me. Because not only did it gender my identity against my will, but as an altar boy who was assaulted in church, I was forced to go through a puberty that fit the narrative and the desires of the church itself. In my perspective, in my analytical framework of how I viewed my life and my identity, it was medically necessary for me to get hormone replacement therapy. All of that is personal, right? It is a personal decision that I had to make myself in order to go through with that path. For some people, hormone replacement therapy may not help everyone. In fact, hormone replacement therapy isn't even for everyone. There are trans people out there who are diagnosed with gender dysphoria who it is not medically necessary for them to go through with hormone replacement therapy because they can find other ways to express their identity without it. That's okay, and that's justified. Not to mention, there are trans people who aren't even diagnosed with gender dysphoria. And truthfully speaking, why would you wish that upon someone? Why would you wish them to go through the same fucking emotional and mental turmoil that we had to go through? Like, if you see a trans person who is happy and content in their own fucking bodies, and they don't do hormone replacement therapy, and they don't have a diagnosis of gender dysphoria, what does it do for you to go on and say, well, you don't have these specific prerequisites? What does that do for you? Does it make your history with gender dysphoria more valid? It doesn't do it for me. You're not really speaking on my behalf. Not to mention, I just find it really insulting that it is implied that we need to medicalize our identities in the first place. For example, there was a time when homosexuality was considered a mental disorder in the DSM. That's a really problematic take if you ask me, a homosexual. Well, I'm more than just a homosexual, let's just be honest here. I'm pretty fucking gay though. But if you're gonna go as far as to say that it is required for trans people to identify with a medical disorder, are you saying you yourself are holistically identified based on your medical disorder? Now look, I do understand that there is some value in using a medical disorder to your advantage, right? Especially if you are diagnosed with it, because you can get services, you can get access to hormone replacement therapy a lot easier through your insurance companies, and doctors can easily more advocate for you if they can more easily pin you with gender dysphoria. That part right there, I am not sweeping off the table at all. That makes sense. It is absolutely valid for you to do that. That's what I did. But if we're talking about that, we should probably talk about how hormone replacement therapy isn't even all that accessible to begin with. Because being transmedicalist, to the point to where you have to pin that medical identity onto others, to the point of gatekeeping, what that does is that it further reinforces the inaccessibility to healthcare.
You know, without doing anything meaningful to address that systemic problem in the first place, I don't know, grow a fucking spine.
And not only that, these are standards that cis people have put onto us. A fucking trans person didn't write the 5th DSM. So it's a little absurd that you're gonna use a standard that cis people have written for us as a means to maintain what is legitimate in terms of gender identity. It is absolutely disrespectful even. Not to mention of what I said earlier, the notion that you need to pass in your presentation of your gender identity in order to be a legitimate trans person. That is bullshit too. Because of the fact that not a lot of people have access to hormone replacement therapy to begin with, depending on what state or country you're from for that matter, what does that say about the people who can't access or afford hormone replacement therapy? Are they just not trans people now? Not everyone can fucking move out of Tennessee in order to get hormone replacement therapy, especially at a consistent rate that it requires for you to do in the long term.
And for the record, you're not the special one for appeasing to other transphobes. They hate you all the same.
Related George Soros and your goons because somebody needs to say it. This has gone on far enough, right? They are
hateful, narcissistic human beings. It's very obvious that they hate women, that they are misogynists at their core. I'm talking about men that put on lipstick and say, not only that they're a woman, mocking us to our faces, saying, I'm a woman, I'm just like you, I can do whatever you want, but then taking it a step further in their misogyny and demanding rights to things that we have, right? Saying, not only am I you, I'm a better version of you. I will crush you in your sports. I will do everything that I can to ruin your career. If you think that there's something wrong with this, a la what's happened to J.K. Rowling and people demanding that she has her career stripped from her because she doesn't consent to this. She doesn't consent to being made obsolete.
Candace Owen, I was in a Catholic church by a female fucking priest. You have the audacity to say that J.K. Rowling does not consent to being obsolete? You are a laughing fucking joke in the face of any kind of fight against misogyny. If people like you were serious about hunting groomers, you'd channel your energy towards the Catholic Church.
I'm privileged, okay? I was born and raised in California, and I started in California.
California.
I mentioned earlier how people identify with transgender and non-binary and gender non-conformity without the gender dysphoria diagnosis. And usually the people who are pushing this transmedicalist narrative on other people, they are really white people.
No.
No, huh? Okay, let's play a little game. You spend your entire YouTube career defaming other trans people, especially your enemies. What you tend to do is unoriginal. You look for what is being said about trans people by other cisgender people, especially transphobic cisgender people, and then you just apply that to your YouTube page. And tell me something, what has that done for you? What has being friends with other transphobic people done for you personally?
I don't really know how much you know about me, but I'm probably the most vocal anti-children transitioning person on the internet. It's what I'm.
Right.
I let you speak.
The best thing you can do for us is grow out your mustache and tell people not to live like you.
Do you remember this debate? Do you need me to play a little bit more of it?
I think it's really funny that she's quoting scripture as a liberal, thinking that she can use it against us as Christians. It's like, oh, it doesn't apply to me, but maybe it'll work on you. And guess what? It doesn't work. Playing on our Christian compassion and making us be tolerant and acceptive of all this diversity, you know what that's left us with? Transgender on Twitter saying that your daughter asked for it. Your little girl isn't actually a princess. She asked for it when I abuse her. That is where we're at. So you're throwing scripture at me as a liberal is not going to work.
And given that you live in the state of Texas, you're not going to be able to play the fuck you I got mine card that much longer. Considering the fact that they are trying to pass laws restricting transgender health care for all ages and not just children like you seem to advocate for at face value. I can more than assure you that none of these anti-transgender bills that are being introduced to attack us, none of these bills that are being introduced have any kind of rhetoric that would exempt you from being excluded in their legislative oppression. Considering that the vague language inside of these introduced bills are vague intentionally so that they can generalize the entire population, including you. What have you done to help the transgender community in terms of the systemic problems that we are seeing today? What, you fucking expose Onision? That's low-hanging fruit. Exposing Onision is like saying don't put your hand in a lit stove. Onision's been exposed for a decade now. He just hasn't been held accountable yet, which we should fucking do right about now. He's in his own lawsuit right now, which is pretty interesting. I don't know how that's gonna work out. But you're in your own lawsuit too, for defaming another transgender woman. Literally knowingly spreading lies about that person. That is shameful. Just screw you. Seriously. Cause you know transphobes hate you just as much as they hate me. And I hate to be a little fucking cunt about this, but I think you're a bit too late to make any form of redemptions here.
What does that say then about indigenous cultures who use different gender identities than we settlers do? Because yes, trans and non-binary and gender non-conforming people, we are oppressed under the capitalist system, of course. But so are they, and arguably more so than we are. And so if all you're gonna do is trans people on this planet of Earth, if you're gonna just push the narrative that all people who identify as trans must go through hormone replacement therapy and must pass, then What are you going to say about people who don't conform to your gender identity or your way of being able to express your gender identity? Who can't afford to have hormone replacement therapy, who don't even want to, who actually have never really had it in them to do so in the first place. Why would you force that on people? Because, my friends, here's why. Because this kind of thinking is assimilationist as fuck.
Assimilation is coercively forcing marginalized and colonized peoples to conform to the dominant culture. An example of this can be seen in the residential schools throughout Canada and the United States that were legal up until the 1990s. So, to assimilate the queer and trans community would be to assimilate them to cis-heteronormative standards. This is an example of compulsory heterosexuality, or in other words, assuming that heterosexuality is the default and it should be enforced by patriarchal means.
Because the concept of transmedicalism, and by extension forcing other people to pass in order for you to see their gender identity as legitimate, what that does is that it forces them to stick to the standards that cisgender people have placed on us for centuries now. Now, I understand that passing is important for some people, especially on a personal level, when you are on the receiving end of a lot of aggressive ass transphobia. Not everyone has that ability to just be themselves without worrying about getting killed. But I can assure you that no matter what, transphobes will still hate you. They will always hate you. You know, just because you get like transphobic legislation off of the bill in one state doesn't mean that the people in that state are gonna change their fucking hearts. So it's absolutely necessary that we stand with all trans people, of all races, of all backgrounds. And I'm just really fucking tired of seeing trans people betray each other to do some of these, like, you know, infightings that is really not necessary. I think when it came to my decision on being trans, it was more about my decision in life to live how I want to. You know, I didn't become this person over here at one point just to assimilate to Christianity. I became this person here in order to become me. And I think that it is extremely disrespectful for other trans people to uphold these kinds of views on other trans people. Let other trans people just live the life that they want to live. If they don't want to go through voice feminization therapy, if they don't want to go through hormone replacement therapy, just fucking let them not do that. If a trans woman wants to have a beard, just let them, okay? You don't need to be an additional enemy to your trans community like the rest of the fucking world is. That is fucking weak sauce right there. Alright, anyway, thank you for watching this video. I am sweating bullets in here. And also, just go ahead and subscribe to me and Ko-Fi.